problems, but I'm cynical about our ability to do that. Let's search through the fog a little bit. Some of the myths on illegal immigration. This was said earlier. I don't believe it's about race, and I don't believe it's about legal immigrants. Heck, most of us are. I am. I was born in London, England. My father's from this area, Black Mountain. My mother's English, though. I'm an immigrant of sorts, naturalized citizen. A lot of you all, or well, darn near everybody in this room came from that background. We'd be pretty naive to be down on legal immigration, but that's the operative word, legal. It's not about need. That's a bunch of nonsense. 25% of the jobs that, quote, people do not want to do are done by illegal immigrants. 75% are done by people who are citizens of this country. It's not about powerlessness. That's the biggest bunch of hooey in the whole mix. Because the solution is very basic, and I believe this was suggested as well. The key is the employers. And that's something we control. We don't have to go to Mexico or anywhere else. That's something we control. By the way, I do have an hour and a half. Is that fair? and then you get it. It's not about technology. We can verify employment status. We're not trying to. We have the technology to do that. It's not about future. This fly now, pay later philosophy is borrowing on our future. We're not protecting our future with this. You know what the national debt is right now? $8.8 to $8.9 trillion. And that is a phenomenal figure per person, but do you know what the real dollar amount is? When you add up our national debt and what we've promised to people, entitlements, Social Security, Medicare, and so forth, it's roughly $500,000 for every man and woman and child living in this country. $500,000. That's not a sustainable future. Now, maybe most of you folks have $500,000 in the bank at home, and you're ready to do your part to take care of the national burden. But I doubt it. I know I don't. I don't think that's the way our culture is created. It's not, speaking of cultures, it's not about uplifting cultures. We're not going to uplift Mexico by letting people run from Mexico, any more than we're going to uplift this community by pointing the finger at somebody else that needs to fix things for us. Those folks who come across our border are coming to something better, but they're leaving that opportunity to make where they are better. And I love the example, those gumballs, about what little real difference we're making to these people by letting a comparative few come here. We serve the world best in the way we've always served the world, as a model of liberty, opportunity, and freedom that works. That works. Far more often than it does not. If you look at the way you grew up, one of the ways that you grew up is you looked around and tried to find some people to emulate, some people to serve as an example that you could grab hold of and try to climb your way up out of youth and inexperience and fears and doubts and all kinds of other things. It took models. It's no different for a world. We're destroying our model, a model of liberty and opportunity and responsibility that has worked far more often than it is not. It's not about justice. You don't find justice in bullying. Kathy, the flag, the upside down flag that became a symbol of the Action Club. Illegal acts, spin. I'm so tired of spin, I can't see straight. My head's spinning from spin. Selfishness, me. We live in the me society now, and I think we live at the epicenter, meaning the core in Nashville is where it's all coming together. I heard someone once call it meevil. Meevil. It can't just be about me. It's got to be about we. So what are the realities? And I'm getting there quickly. It is to the shame of the Democrats and the Republicans that they've created this unholy alliance for different agendas. The Democrats have their social agenda, the Republicans have their economic ones. I can make groups equally angry. I can go to SIBO and talk to them about illegal immigration and make them mad at me because a lot of those folks employ illegal immigrants. And then you go to a Democratic meeting or a social justice meeting and get other people upset at you about the same subject. We're ignoring the iceberg costs. We look just at the tip. Senator Schubert defined the manipulation of statistics. You know, the tip of the iceberg is just this few dollars, but when you look down deep, it's something much different. Emergency room care, schools, second language bilingual costs and inefficiencies, social services through fake IDs. Do not believe for a minute that they check those things carefully. They can't. They're so impaired and so afraid they can't, and they don't. Uninsured motorist accidents, exported funds that go out of this country into other countries, accidents, drug trafficking. The number one group, we have diversity in the drug world. White people use most of them. Black people distribute most of them on the streets, and illegal immigrants bring them into the country. None of us are innocent. We're sidestepping a self-correcting economic system by saying we don't want to pay more for people who work with their hands. We want cheap chicken. And I thought the point was beautifully made. We're corrupting our middle class with that thinking. I think we should be willing to pay more to have our grass mowed, to buy a piece of chicken, whatever it takes. Pay a person a fair living wage. Don't orchestrate it with government because it will be guaranteed to be a mess, but let our self-correcting free enterprise system set the rate that, by golly, if we've got a whole lot more doctors than we do chicken growers, let's pay more for chicken than medical care. I call it the cheap chicken economic policy system in our country, and it doesn't work. It's creating an erosion of our faith in our leaders, in our system, in our culture, and very importantly, and this is pivotal, our laws. When you begin to believe that your laws aren't fairly applied, aren't honest, aren't real, or aren't going to be enforced, people get afraid. And they start thinking, I better take shortcuts too, because everybody else is. I'm going to get behind. And when you set up that kind of system, you begin the deep, pervasive corruption of the culture. And that's happening in America. And a beautiful example of it is go down to Texas near the border towns, and the same kind of bribery and political corruption that occurs on the other side of the border is happening on our side of the border in a way that most of us wouldn't believe. And I'm about to wrap it up. My wife is a nurse. Whenever I cut myself, she says, remember, that's a portal for infection. And the first time she told me that, I said, what are you talking about? She said, well, in nursing school, I had this great professor who said, anytime you bust open your skin, it's a portal for infection. Well, those boundaries around our country are our skin. And we're creating open portals for infection of various sorts for our culture. The solutions, it's as simple as 1, 2, 3. First off, recognize that in spite of the spin, illegal immigration is a form, unintentional perhaps, but it is a form of cultural terrorism, and fight it as such. Cultural terrorism. Number 2, go after where the money comes from and the illegal immigrants go to. Who is that? The employers. And fine the heck out of them, jail them if you have to. It's not that hard. And then finally, hold to the rule of law. Plato's principle that governmental authority is legitimately exercised only in accordance with written, publicly disclosed laws, adopted and enforced That's the operative word. In accordance with established procedures and means to safeguard against arbitrary governance. That was Plato a long time ago. A wise man. He got it right. We have arbitrary governance now, and that's a foundation of corruption in culture. It is injustice that the order of a society is centered. One of his colleagues from a time not so far away, Aristotle, said that. So what do? Let us not be cowards. Let's find the courage and the will, and I think that's why you're here, to fight back, to say no, that we are no longer willing to accept the invasion of our country and cultural terrorism by any disguise that others want to give it. And we are willing to fight back. Thank you for the opportunity.